The 26th of April 2025. You're welcome back. Very nice evening here. Not that warm, but still a very nice evening. And you can hear the birds singing. Yeah, you mightn't be able to pick them there, but they're singing anyway. Singing anyway. Now, the Pope was buried today. God be good to the man. Pray for his soul. He always sought for humble things, and he asked for some of the less well-off to be at his funeral. Not that I didn't think there were too many less well-offs in Italy anyway. Don't seem to be too many hungry in it from any time I was there. It is an absolutely beautiful country. Beautiful country, but especially outside of the cities. And warm and lovely temperature and all. And a thing that struck me about the north left of it, northeast of it, is you'd see big hilly countries, and they'd have little plots of 3 acres of oats or barley growing up on the hills. You'd wonder why the tractor wouldn't overturn. Anyway, the question is this. He certainly went along with the things that I complain about here. He was pushing what the global elites are pushing. He was also pushing what the communists are pushing. Certainly his last speech at Easter was one of his best. Now, whether he wrote it himself or not, I don't know. But he did lament the persecution of Christians in Syria and in Gaza. There's a Catholic church in Gaza, and he did make that, but I thought he could have been at that a lot sooner. A lot sooner, but we'll give credit where it's due. I see the Islamic resistance has come out praising him. And apparently there's an awful lot of different sects in the Catholic Church that were represented there today. I just kind of got it on the news. But one of the things is this. There's a fundamental issue. Does the word of Christ to love your neighbour as yourself and try and do a good turn when you can and give 2 coats to the man who has 1, does it extend to bringing the whole of Africa into Ireland? If you decide as a people, whether in Ireland or in Iceland, to tax your people who work and force them to pay tax, and in Ireland, if you don't pay your taxes, especially a private person, you can be jailed and they'll shame you in the paper. So it's not a question of, you give them a few bob. It can actually mean breaking a company, breaking a person if they owe the money. I knew people who were driven to suicide because of tax bills they felt they could never meet. They felt their whole life work that they had accumulated was all going to go to the taxman, and they ended their lives. So it's no joke throwing taxes money away. And I think an awful lot of the people who support the communist mass migration agenda are people who don't bother working, wouldn't get out of bed and don't want to make an effort. But there's also a great elite crowd. There's the elites like Klaus Schwab, who's been in trouble at the moment. There's the elites like Ursula von der Leyen, but it's also a hidden elite that we don't see. And I feel that the Pope sided too much with them. It surely doesn't extend to complying with Christ's word that if you have taxes and collection for your own people and you hold elections and they vote for these goods, that you don't tell them that they're for the whole world, that you hide that. You deceive the people into thinking that is for them. Does it extend to giving motor cars to Ukrainians when they're desperately trying to take the motor cars of the like of me to get in and out to do my messages? I think he failed to spot that. I think the Pope failed to spot that. I'd like to see going back to a Pope like Pope John Paul, because Christ, the whole idea and the whole reason Christ was successful and the Christian religion was successful, and it's 2,000 years old now, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't get to be 3,000 years old, despite all the pressure. And it's from the very people who profess this mass migration that are down on the church and hate the message and that of the Christian message. I think Pope Francis, whatever we can say, and he tried to treat everyone the same, got that wrong. It cannot be that President Trump must take in the whole world into America and give them the same conditions as people living there. Surely it is for the European Union and Ireland and Britain to promote the ideals of our own society abroad in countries like the Sudan, Somalia, these poor countries, in places like Pakistan, and try and get the principles of justice and the rule of law there. Try and get them to stop persecuting people who are not members of the Muslim religion. Surely that is the way to go, and to lead by example. But the other thing which I must condemn Pope Francis for now, and this is not easy done, he was a climate change believer, and he coined a phrase which is used by the left, climate justice, without defining what climate justice is. What is climate justice? Do I need climate justice? We can't get basic justice as required by the environmental directives of the European Union. They deny us those rights. It's some struggle to comply with a simple directive that they assess all this green stuff. So what is climate justice, and who does it apply to? Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger have set up their own governments with coups, kicked the French out, and they say they don't want them anymore, and the Russians and Chinese are in there and they're getting along okay. Why do we need to be Christian to them? Aren't they able to do their own thing? Weren't they better off doing their own thing than relying on black babies' pennies from Ireland? Because for years and years that's what they were getting, a penny for the black baby. There'd be a box in the shop. Surely these people have better dignity than to want pennies from me. Is that what you're reducing the people, the African people, to? A penny from a farmer with cows? Why won't we let them sell their coffee and their cocoa into Ireland and the EU? Someone posted on one of my videos, Nestle, this new fella that took over from Schwab, they have this, that and the other. It doesn't matter what they have. They are stopping the African farmer from exporting his goods into the EU and getting manufactured goods. It's outlawed. So where do you start with climate justice when you won't let the person living in Africa sell his product? So where's the justice in that? The justice is they wanted to lob a tax on me of about €3,000 and take all we have and give it away to somebody else in the name of climate justice, and you can be sure that Klaus Schwab would have a big proportion of it when you Google what he's suspected of doing. So I don't withdraw what I say, and I do call for, I think in vain, I do call for the appointment of a pope of more traditional values. And whether we like it or not, the issue of abortion has to be a part of the church's teaching. It may not always be lived up to, but at the moment it's suppressed. The American Democratic Party, which is the party of the globalists, wanted abortion on the day of the baby's birth. Pope Francis should have come out more strongly about that. So have I made my point? It's not necessarily the most popular one, but it's the way I feel. There was a protest in Dublin today about this migration. I still don't understand what is the burning matter in the politicians' minds that this is what they want. And the fact is we had an election and most people who don't want this migration still voted for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. That's new. It's new that the Irish people vote for the destruction of their country. I can't explain that and I can't deal with it. So we leave it at that, folks. God be good to him. We enter a new era. And just before I go, I'll take a minute of your time. Don't forget, if you go down there 15 miles, just in that direction, you're into County Armagh. And that is the home and the birth of St. Malachy. He was born down there somewhere. And it's well worth reading his prophecy. For he counts this Pope Peter. His real name is Peter. He's a member of a family in Italy called Peter, the Roman Peter. But his people went to Argentina, but he's really Italian. And he says he'll be the last Pope. And as we're unlikely to see any wipeout of humanity right now, we have to take it that the next Pope then, according to Malachi, will not be a proper Pope at all, that he'll be Satan. That he'll be Satan. That's what Malachi's prophecy was. Don't ask me to say how true it is or not. But it's amazing how close he's to me. Malachi's priesthood and bishop was only 50, it came in 15 miles down there at Cullaville. Unbelievable. Anyway, that's the story, folks. Comment underneath. Sure, we can't expect, I suppose, the Pope, has to be a bit give and take. He has to be a bit for charity and all of that. But I still believe the best charity is give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Whereas if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. And the place to have him fishing and doing his thing and succeeding is in his own country, in Zimbabwe or wherever else. And I see signs with Russian and Chinese guidance of exactly that happening in the Sahel states of Africa, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. That's the model I would go for. Why should there be anyone hungry? Why should there be anyone poor? Get them doing it and give them the fossil fuel to burn, because only by burning coal, oil and gas will you pull them out of poverty. We would be in some poverty in the morning if the supply of diesel into Ireland stopped. We'd all die. We'd die with the cold, and we'd die with the hunger, and we'd die with poverty. The whole economy would collapse. The Eamon Ryan's electricity generation requires 56 lorry loads of diesel oil a day to keep the lights on. We'll see you back soon. I don't want to condemn the man too much, but he's probably looking down on me. I'm telling you, that form of interpretation of Christ's word, in my opinion, is error. It's wrong, and I hope to God it changes back to something a bit more sensible. Bye bye. Good luck.